Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. In today's episode, evil cheerleader gets shown what evil truly is. Don't want to hire me, okay then. I'll let you think that over. Tell me to hide period products in order to not offend male co-workers? Consider it done. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Evil cheerleader gets shown what evil truly is. So I was reminded of this when an old school buddy found me on Facebook the other day. I apologize for the length of this story. Now, before I became a friendly cookie-loving teddy bear, I was a thin, mean little theater goth who got into frequent fights. It's what happens when you're black, nerdy, and gay while growing up in rural Virginia. I especially could not stand it when people pick on my friends. In comes the evil cheerleader. We'll call her BEA. Now some of you might be rolling your eyes at this. Evil cheerleader? Oh no. What a terrible cliche. But our school was a little different. You see, she was the only evil cheerleader. The rest of the team was super nice and did a lot of inter-school outreach. Anyways, BEA liked to stomp through the hallways like she owned the place and would viciously bully anyone who looked at her wrong. Naturally, my confrontational ass would stare at her like she was a bug every time I saw her. Up to that point, she had only had beef with me. We'd trade insults, she'd start a rumor about me, I'd pour soda on her hair, that sort of thing. Then she saw me with one of my shy theater friends who we'll call K. I was more than BEA's match, so instead she chose to go after K. K was such a wonderful human. Never said a bad word about anyone. Was always willing to help people. And she made the best s'mores cookies. Kay also had the unfortunate habit of just letting people treat her however they wanted and not saying anything about it. So imagine my sheer fury when I see BEA slamming Kay against the locker by her hair, calling her the N-word. You want to try to bully me, fine. You want to call me outside my name, fine. What you will not do is come after my friends with racism and violence. Not today, baby girl. I immediately ran over and slapped BEA as hard as I could. Now, due to my height and ethnicity, I've been taught that I shouldn't start physical altercations with women as it never looks good. I cared just enough to not deck that cunt. As BEA was picking her face off the floor, she thought it would be a good idea to double down on the racism. BEA, all UNS are wife beaters. Me, come again? I slapped you because you were hurting my friend. The hell is wrong with you? BEA, she stole something from me like the dirty monkey she is. Me again, what the hell is wrong with you? Her insults really weren't making sense. Looking back, I think she was just trying to say the most racially offensive thing she could think of without any real consideration of reality. Which is just terrible roasting technique. Me, you know what? I have less than 0 fucks to give you right now. You come near my friends again, and I will literally snatch your uterus out with my bare hands. BEA, we'll see what my boyfriend says about that. Me, oh no. Not your boyfriend, sarcasm. She walked away spitting more bullshit, but at that point I chose to ignore her and focus on Kay, who had a small knot forming on her forehead. I took Kay to the nurse's office and begged her to report BEA. Kay didn't want to because I might get in trouble too. I told her that I didn't care, slapping that bitch was worth it. But Kay didn't budge. After Kay got an ice pack, we were both sent back to class and the rest of the day went on as usual. After school, I was on my way to anime club. Yes, I'm a weeb, and who should show up but BEA's boyfriend, who we'll call Bob. Now Bob was a soft-spoken guy who only got cool points because he was on the football team. Peel off the football team luster, and you have a walking, talking doormat who's about as intimidating as a medicated cotton ball. So him and his boys waltz on up to me, spitting some wannabe threatening line about making me disappear. I informed him that I own waterfront property on the Wish Island, because I wish a bitch would. His friends laughed at him, which exasperated the snot out of me. Most punks are all talk. You stand your ground and they'll back off. Unless they have their friends with them. The moment they lose face in front of their crew, they become much more likely to do something stupid. So of course he rushes me. Now I've got something of a conundrum. I'm scrappy, but I'm by no means a badass. There are 5 of them and 1 of me. So if I can drop this dude, I have to be able to either put on a good show so they don't engage or run. Considering I was extra AF, I decided to put on a show. I use Bob's momentum and I slam him into a nearby locker, putting my forearm on his throat. Now I don't remember what threat I whispered to Bob, but I'm going to assume it was effective because he went still. Now what I do remember was what happened next. Now due to how I was holding him against the locker, our bodies were pretty close. Too close. Because I felt something press against my thigh. Now I'm thinking it's a weapon or a phone or something. Nope. It was his erection. Homeboy was aroused. Why? No clue. All I do know was that things had gotten really awkward. I let him go and hightailed it out of there because I'm equal parts WTF, and did that really just happen? During anime club, I told Kay all about what happened. She laughed because of course she did, but then a look crept in her eye. It was this devious little smirk that I had never seen up till that point. She looked at me and told me that if we wanted to, we could use this to teach BEA a lesson. I'm thinking she meant like a rumor, or using this to insult her, but no. Kay had something far worse in mind. It's true what they say about the quiet ones. So after a few days and some additional planning, it was time to put our revenge into motion. I found Bob and asked to speak with him privately, so we went into the spare classroom that the school never really uses. After some back and forth, Bob confirmed that he was bisexual. Some cringeworthy flirting later, Bob and I are making out. All according to plan. BEA would walk in, see us and be humiliated. Now I do want to mention that hindsight is 20/20ths. We were teenagers and we really didn't understand how problematic this plan was on a social scale. BEA deserved some karmic justice, but this really shouldn't have been it. That being said, Bob was an eager beaver. He didn't stop at just making out. He went down south, if you catch my meaning. Me being hormonal and admittedly starved for a little attention, really didn't see any reason to stop him. So when Kay led BEA into the room, she got to see Bob's head bobbing, and me with a contented smile on my face. Now to BEA's credit, she was not homophobic towards Bob in any way. In that highly problematic situation, she had plenty of opportunity. She was, however, furious at him cheating on her with one of her sworn enemies. And an N-word to boot. She screamed at him for almost 15 minutes before a teacher had come by and demanded that we head to class. Later, BEA found me at lunch and called a ceasefire of sorts. She agreed to only target me if I agreed to stay away from Bob. I agreed, knowing full well that Bob was coming over to my house that afternoon. BEA and I would continue to antagonize each other until I moved away, but it was never as severe. In some ways I think we kinda broke her confidence a little. Oh well. Don't be a racist cunt and people won't want to get back at you. Don't want to hire me, okay then. I'll let you think that over. Here's another tale related to me by a coworker. I might not have all the details correct, but here we go. To understand the setting, you need to know what a Crosstalker is. That's a logistics company that ships LTL loads, less that trailer. So let's say that you have customer that has 2 skids for City A, 3 skids for City B, and a skid for City C. You go to the customer, pick up all of his shipments, then put them in with the other orders for their respective cities. The freight moves across the dock into its destination container. With this arrangement, you spend the day running around, picking up orders. Late in the afternoon, the loads start to arrive at the warehouse, and the fun begins. The dock crew worked 4 p.m. to midnight, sometimes later, depending on volume. Let's call my friend Charlie. He was a temp in the dispatch office. When he was hired, it was staffed by old manager, manager's nephew, and a day dispatcher who set up the pickups. That was the day shift. Charlie was the afternoon shift, along with 2 data entry clerks. So the dock would load a container destined for a particular city. They hand the folder with the waybills for each of the shipments in the container to data entry, who get it into the server, and generate a manifest. Most of these containers were intermodal, and they were shipped out by train. You've seen ships with containers piled on them? Same thing, except for domestic shipments they would use 53-foot containers, rather than the 40-foot containers you see on boats. Charlie would take the folder and then verify that everything in the container was headed for the correct city. Check for temperature-controlled freight. Check for dangerous goods, and make certain the container was placarded correctly. Then he would go online and check the container into the railway system. When Charlie was hired, they were doing about 5 to 10 rail shipments a shift. He was told to copy and paste the information from the railway's webpage into a report, then send a heads-up email at the conclusion of the shift to each of the partner terminals in the respective destination cities. By the time he'd been there 2.5 years, that volume had increased to about 40 to 50 loads a shift. Day shift might handle 3 or 4, and manager and nephew would use the copy and paste routine, but Charlie didn't have the time to do that. His brother was a bit of a techie, so when Charlie noticed that he could export to Excel a report from the railyard site, he got his brother to write a script that would harvest the relevant info and generate reports for each of the cities, and would do it in a few seconds. Charlie approached manager and asked for a position with the company, as it would be a raise, and he would get health benefits. Manager dragged his feet and finally said no. Charlie thought about it for a bit, then told manager, "I'm going to be taking 2 weeks off, starting Monday. Call the agency and get them to send someone else over." Manager was furious, but he didn't have a leg to stand on. He wasn't Charlie's employer, so he had no authority to deny Charlie the time off. Charlie was in good with the agency, one of their stars. Temp workers aren't the most reliable, so anyone who kept his head down and caused no issues was valued, and the agency backed him up. Charlie had friends on the dock, and they kept him informed. The first problem was that the replacement the agency sent had nothing in the way of experience, and manager had to train him from the ground up. This resulted in many phone calls throughout the evening to manager, which got him more and more cranky as the days went on. The second was the reports. This company was on the West Coast, and was shipping across the country. Each destination location had a huddle scheduled at 7 a.m. in their respective time zones, where they would review the incoming shipments. The dock would shut down sometimes at 1 a.m., and the new temp needed to get the reports out by 3 or 4 a.m., and the copy and paste routine was taking way too long. Which brings us to the third problem, overtime. The temp was running 12 to 14-hour shifts. Manager delegated nephew to work afternoons to help out. That meant manager had to cover nephew's workload as well as his own. Nephew was really not happy either, as he was a sports fanatic, and played hockey several times a week. He had to miss his games. Even with nephew on the job, the reports took forever to get out, and there were mistakes made. Temp-controlled freight was sent dry, and in one case they had to send the dock foreman racing to the rail yard to placard a container before the yard would accept it. After a week or so, Charlie took the opportunity to distribute his resume and put manager up as a reference. So now manager was getting calls about Charlie, and realized that Charlie might not come back. He was taking flamethrower heat from all directions, and his only way out was to put Charlie on the payroll. By this time, the agency had sent TWO temps to cover what Charlie used to do, with the oversight of nephew. Manager called Charlie in for an interview. "Okay, Charlie, we'll put you on the payroll, we'll pay you the same as the agency paid you, and we'll give you benefits." "No, thanks. I have other interested companies that are offering more." "Fine. We'll put you on salary and bump it up by 10%. "Again, no thanks. I won't accept a salaried position unless I get to go home after 40 hours. If you need me to stay late, you need to pay me overtime." "How much an hour are you looking for?" "Well, I know what you pay the agency for my services, and right now you have 2 temps working to cover the shift. Tell you what, pay me what you were paying the agency, and add the benefits, and you have a deal." "What? That's almost double what you were making before. And that's what other companies are offering. You can cut what you're paying out to the agency by half, and there won't be as many fuck-ups. Nephew can strap on his skates, and you can watch TV all evening without getting phone calls. Or things can continue the way they're going. What's it gonna be?" Charlie got hired on, made a good chunk more money, and as a sweetener, negotiated 3 weeks holidays a year. Tell me to hide period products in order to not offend male coworkers? Consider it done. Background: I work in a fast-paced healthcare environment where every minute counts, and I have both male and female coworkers on my shift. We have lockers with opaque doors where we're allowed to store our things. When I'm in the office area, I leave mine unlocked for easy access, and I've started keeping a box of tampons in my locker. I've told my female coworkers if they're in a hurry and need a tampon, they're welcome to just open my locker when it's unlocked and I'm in the office and take one, no problem. I got called into my boss's office the other day because a male coworker of mine complained that me keeping tampons in my locker was disgusting, and he hated that he could see the box whenever my locker was opened. My boss, a male, told me that some men were really sensitive to this type of thing, and that I should try hiding them in a different type of box so I wouldn't offend my coworkers. I asked what the point was because my coworkers would see someone reaching into a Crackers/Pop-Tarts, etc. box and taking out a tampon instead of food anyway. My boss got all huffy and told me that it was for the best and I needed to do it. Well, fine. I made a cover for my tampon box that said Mother Earth's Bloody Nutrients Bars, with extra gooey, nutritious filling, with a photo of a bloody bathtub and placed it on the box. That was 2 days ago, and I saw the male coworker open my locker, trying to be sneaky, and he paled when he read the box, got all angry, and I received an email from my boss that my cover wasn't funny and that I need to take it down. So I emailed our HR person a copy of the email, as well as a summary of what happened and photos of the lockers, the box, and the cover. I also suggested that the male coworker sit somewhere where he didn't have a direct line of sight to my locker if it really offended him so much. She thought it was freaking hilarious and said I followed my supervisor's instructions, and so I was fine. Nothing else has been done yet, and I'm mostly angry that my time was spent on something as stupid as this and not on patient work. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.